Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, back to our normal scheduled programming now. So it's October and I wanted to get a couple horror related videos out on this channel before the end of the month. I already did a Goosebumps video at the beginning of the month. I might have another Goosebumps video coming out at the end of the month, I don't know just yet. But for today I figured I would at least shift our attention back to another horror related subject that's been recurring on this channel, which is the Universal Monsters, or more specifically the Universal Monsters on VHS, and talk about something that I don't know if a lot of people are that aware of. I myself wasn't even aware of it until roughly a decade ago. But this will be a video that's sort of in vein with that Frankenstein video I did earlier this year, in that it does pertain to a particular VHS release of a Universal Monster title, more specifically as part of that collection that came out in the early 90s, but it's a title that apparently had two different variants when it was released as part of that collection. But in this situation, when I'm talking about variants, I'm not talking about like the packaging or like with that Frankenstein video, the commercial that's at the front of the tape. No, actually, the variants in question refers to the movie itself. And the title in question is 1942's The Mummy's Tomb. This was the first of the Mummy films to feature Lon Chaney Jr. as the Mummy, even though there are some people who often speculate whether or not it's him or not, because in most of his appearances as the Mummy, he's clearly wearing a mask. Now, this was released as part of the 93 line of tapes that came out in that Universal Monsters collection, which ran from 91 through 94. This is my original copy, which I got when I was about 6 or 7, so I've had it for about a good 25 years now. Now, just to quickly rehash something that I talked about in that Frankenstein video. So I started collecting those tapes back in the late 90s into the early 2000s. And because of that, most of the copies that I was obtaining in those days when I found them in Best Buy or Suncoast or wherever, for the most part, they were reprint copies. And that Mummy's Tomb tape was no exception, even though I didn't realize that at the time, nor did I really have much of a concept of what a reprint was then. But just to get into the real topic of this video, so about 9 or 10 years ago, I was engaged in an online discussion about the various home video releases of these Universal Monster films. And at one point, somebody mentioned that apparently the original VHS release of The Mummy's Tomb was actually missing footage, which I thought to myself, that can't be. The copy I had was definitely not missing anything. At least when I compare it to the later DVD and Blu-ray versions, there was nothing missing on my copy. But further into that discussion, it turns out that yes, there was footage missing on the tape initially, but evidently it was brought to Universal's attention and they did eventually restore it, which would explain why my original copy here did have that footage intact. I thought, that's interesting. What was missing specifically? Well, I'll get to that in a few minutes. So when I found out about this, the collector in me is thinking it would be interesting to find an original copy that had that footage missing. But this might be a little tricky. This isn't a case like Frankenstein where they start labeling it the restored version so people know which one it is. This is a situation where, again, the cover was the same, the tape looks more or less the same, it might be hard to differentiate which one is which. And bear in mind, I also give or take the Mummy film, so I don't really want to be piling up on copies of Mummy's Tomb that I don't frankly need, so I knew my options were limited. But then a few years ago, I found this copy at a convention, which as you can see, when you look at them side by side, at a passing glance, they basically look identical. Same with the backs, nothing with the back to really go off of. They both even still have the same typo on the director credit. It says directed by Harold Yound. It should say directed by Harold Young. Now my convention copy does have a flyer with it. This will actually come into play in a few minutes. But let's look at the cassettes. As you can see, not much with the cassettes to really go off of either. My original copy here does have a UPC here. I mean, that could be a potential clue if you want. But yeah, as you can see, pretty much identical looking tapes. If I was going to be frank, I would actually say you probably have better clues to help you identify the corrected tape than the original tape. As I mentioned, you could possibly use that UPC as a clue. If you're not too concerned with packaging, you could always go with the 2001 release. Another reason that release could come into play is, let's say you have a copy with this cover, but it's the original tape that's missing the footage, you could always just get the 2001 release and just swap the tapes. Because here's another point I want to bring up. I do have this 2001 release of The Mummy's Hand, which according to the package is supposed to be like a new release, because as you can see it says includes theatrical trailer. But let's look at the cassette for a second. As you can see with the label, it still has the MCA Universal logo there, which by 2001 would not be the home video label anymore. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, they probably just decided to reuse the same label, but the contents of the tape were changed, right? Well, I have watched this tape, and I can definitely confirm it's just a reprint of the classic collection release, the one with this cover. The very first thing that pops up on the tape is, I bid you welcome, MCA Universal Home Video. That classic commercial, and then of course there's still an MCA Universal Home Video logo before the start of the movie. So yeah, despite what this cover says, this is just a reprint of the 1992 release. But part of the reason I bring that up is because if I can confirm that this is nothing more than a reprint, then I doubt the situation is any different with that 2001 release of Mummy's Tomb as well. Another potential clue you can go off of, let's just look at this copy of Mummy's Hand again. As you can see with the label, even though the MCA Universal logo is here, it does have this Universal globe stamped in the background. Now bear in mind, that logo wasn't in print until 97. Now let's look at this copy of Mummy's Tomb for a second. As you can see, it does have MCA Universal Home Video typed in text in the background there. So another clue you could go off of is finding a copy with this cover, but it has a label on it that's similar to the way it is on this Mummy's hand tape. So yes, you do have a few options if you want to look for the corrected tape. But if you're looking for the original edited tape, your clues are a little more limited. So what clue did I choose to go with in terms of finding that original tape? Remember how I said I was going to bring this flyer up again later? Well, much like with that Frankenstein tape, my clue was looking at the flyer that it included. That was basically the same approach I did with the Mummy's Tomb. I was looking for a copy that had this specific flyer. This is the 93 flyer. And how do I know that? Here we have our list of Universal Monster titles. These were the titles that were released between 91 and 92. We got a list of Abbott and Costello titles, but we have more monster titles over here, and one of the titles on this list is the Mummy's Tomb. These were the new releases at the time, which basically tells me that this would have been the most recent flyer that was being printed at the time that the Mummy's Tomb was first hitting video shelves back in 93. So yes, I decided that that was going to be my clue in terms of finding that original copy. Am I saying it's a surefire method? Of course not. I mean, for all I know, they could have corrected that tape before this flyer went out of circulation. But I knew the chances of it being that original tape were a little better if it had this flyer with it specifically. But I have checked this tape and I can definitely confirm it is the edited tape. Now, what was it that was specifically missing from it? Well, let me show you real quick. Alright, so I have the DVD geared up right now. I'm hoping because I'm filming this with my camera and I have the volume turned down a little bit, YouTube won't copyright hit me for this, but just to help illustrate what I'm talking about here, I'll let this play out for a few seconds. So here we have the guy shooting at the mummy. The mummy's coming towards him. He takes a shot right there and then he collapses to the ground right here. And you see the mummy about to limp right past him right now. Yeah, right here. He's limping past him. And then we get this scene right here. She's coming out on the porch. You see the mummy coming up behind her. And of course, you know, he strangles her right now. Alright, I'm going to rewind back a little bit because I want to show something real quick. Alright, like right here, let's look at the time. We're at 31 minutes and 19 seconds. Alright, just to speed this up a little bit, I'm at this hospital scene right now. Let's look at the runtime real quick. 32:18. Okay, so we've been about a minute since when I paused before, just to give an idea of how much we've gone past in the movie so far. Alright, so I have the VHS geared down. Here's the shot again of him collapsing on the ground. And again, we will have the mummy limping past him. And cut right to the hospital scene. So yeah, as you can see, there was a major jump here. So yeah, as you can see, there was just randomly about a minute, maybe just a little over a minute's worth of footage that was just mysteriously missing on that original VHS release. What was the cause of it? I don't know. Maybe it was like a reel change or something like that that they just didn't catch, but obviously at some point someone caught it, because I can definitely confirm the VHS I had growing up had all that footage intact, so I definitely got a later reprint version that fortunately was a corrected tape. But yeah, there was a time where for some reason the VHS release of the Mummy's Tomb had about a minute's worth of footage that was missing. So I actually got lucky. My theory was correct on this one. By finding a copy that had that flyer specifically, I did find one of those original Mummy's Tomb VHSs that had that footage missing, which is kind of cool. I mean, I definitely think that's something that's cool to have at this point, at least from a collecting standpoint, because at the time, you know, most people just think, oh, the tape is missing something, it's just trash at this point. But when you look at it 30 years later and think from a collecting point of view, it's nice to have that original tape to look at it and be like, oh yeah, they screwed this up at one point, now they went back and fixed it later on. So that's how I approach these things. I think that's kind of cool. Like case in point, like when they came out with those Universal Monster Legacy sets on Blu-ray a few years ago, when they first came out with the Creature set, apparently the disc that had Revenge of the Creature on it, the 3D version was screwed up and they had to issue replacement discs. But if you look at it from a collecting standpoint, if you're one of those people who still have the original screwed up disc, that might become a collector's item somewhere down the line. You never know. So I'll kind of start wrapping it here. I just wanted to do a quick video about that because again, it's one of those things that I don't think people knew much about. Again, I didn't know about it until a decade ago. But it's nice to know that it paid off in the end. I did with one try find the correct tape. And again, with keeping with the season, I wanted to at least get some type of horror related video out again on this channel for this month. I might have one or two more coming. I'm not really sure yet. I mean, obviously there's not much time left in the month at this point, so we'll see. But nonetheless, I still appreciate you all being here. Thank you for watching. It's almost Halloween, spooky season. Let's all have fun. Thank you always for watching. I appreciate you all. Stay safe out there. Take care.